Hey there. Today we're going to learn how to start up, taxi, takeoff, and land a Cessna 152. And because this flight simulator, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, has the whole cockpit working and everything, it's going to be pretty easy to learn the real plane once you've actually learned how to start up this version of it over here. Now, first of all, we have a checklist prepared for this simulator. We're going to use that to understand what we're going to have to do. First of all, before starting the engine, the fuel shut-off valve needs to be open, which is over here, as you can see. It's off position. We're going to turn it on, and then there it is. Now we're going to have to test the brakes, and it works. And yeah, we have to turn off the parking brakes for that, and the brakes actually work pretty well. Alright, what's next? Starting the engine. Alright. So first of all, you have to start the engine. This is the mixture. You just have to push it to 100% for it to be a rich mixture. You also have to have the carburetor heat, which is over here on the right side of your yoke. You have to push it, keep it pushed for it to be cold. When we pull it out, it's going to be warm. Next, what you have to do is we have to have the primer, which is this one. You have to prime the engine. We pull it and it primes the engine. We are doing it thrice so that it primes. And we have to keep the throttle half inches open. So it's going to be kind of like that. Alright. Next, we have to have the master switches, which are the battery switches on. I'm going to hide the yoke for that. That's the first switch, and that's the auxiliary alternative battery switch as well. We're going to turn on both of them so that we can see all the gouges and everything started to work. And now what we can do is we can start the ignition, which is the key over there. You have to actually have the key. So we have to do it 4 times, and now it starts just like a basic car. So you start the engine there, the engine is now working, as you can see. Alright, now what comes next is we have to have the throttle adjusted to 1000 RPMs, runs per minute. Now we have to adjust it so that it stays in the 10 area of that gauge, which is basically 1000 RPM. A bit less, I guess. It should be around 1000. That's, I think it's good enough. I'm going to adjust it just a bit more for it to be exact, and I think that's good enough. Alright, perfect. Next, what we have to do is have to have the oil pressure to green. It's not really to the green, but that's still fine. The it's good enough, I guess. It's good enough to start fly the plane. We also have to have the beacon and navigation lights on. Nav and beacon. We can also turn on the taxi light, because we're going to have to taxi in a bit. At this point, you usually have to talk to the ADC and get a clearance for takeoff, but for now we're just going to keep it that way. We have to release the parking brake before we start doing so, and we have to taxi towards the runway, which we're going to do right now. And we just slowly adjust the throttle, and we release the parking brake so that the plane now can slowly start to move. like that. Yeah, we don't need pushbacks. It's absolutely fine. The plane can move a whole full 180 degree. There. Now we're going to use the whole runway, so I'm going to taxi a bit towards the end of the runway and then move the plane on the opposite side. Like that. There. Perfect. Now we stop in the middle of the runway and get ready for takeoff. Set the parking brake as well, and put the throttle down a bit. Now we're going to make some more changes. We have to turn off the taxi light, which is that one there, and turn on the landing lights, which are for landings and takeoffs. We also have to turn on the strobe light there. The trim should be on takeoff. Everything else is set. We have to have the flaps down, 15 degrees for takeoff. A bit more, I guess. That's the 10-degree flaps. I think that's good enough for the plane to take off. Good enough, yeah. That's good. Next, what you have to do is you have to have the parking brake off. First, let me turn on the yoke, and then we have to have the parking brake off. And I think we are quite ready to fly. There you go. So push the parking brake in order for it to be off, and now we gently start to throttle the plane so that it accelerates towards the runway. We slowly pull the throttle in like that and all the way in so that the plane has full power. And in order to have a safe takeoff, you have to have the plane at 60 knots at least. As you can see, we just passed 60 knots. We can now slowly start to take off. We're gonna have to pull the yoke a bit like that, and the plane is now in the air. As simple as that. Now that worked really well, didn't it? Now we have to keep the plane at 80 knots at least once we are in the air. So we have to put the nose down a bit, like that. Because when you have the nose up, the speed slowly decreases. When you have the nose down, the speed increases a bit. Now we can pull the throttle a bit so that the speed stays at around 80. I'm going to try to do that in a bit. And we have to trim the nose of the plane in order for it to not climb more than I want it to, or not fall off the air. I also, if you haven't noticed, put the flaps up as well, because now we're in the air, we don't really need the flaps anymore, because the flaps are only used when you want to slow down the plane or when you want to lift in the air. Alright, now we can slowly start to trim the plane so that the nose stays parallel to the horizon, so that the vertical speed is 0. That means the plane won't go up or down anymore. You can slowly start to do that in a bit. This is, by the way, the Rajshahi airport, which is Victor Golf Romeo Juliet. That's what it's called in the airport code for aviation. As you can see, I'm still ascending a bit. And we're going to go towards the landing phase in a bit. I'm going to move the aircraft and pass the runway again and land from the opposite side, from the side that we took off, which is, I think, runway 17. Going to do that in a bit. And you have a compass on the top, as you can see. If you actually want to know which way you're heading, you can, because the runways are adjusted just like in the compass. So runway 35 is 350 in the compass, and runway 17 is 170 in the compass. That's how they're usually noted, so you can actually figure out which way you're heading using the compass there. The weather is a bit cloudy today. The visibility is not optimal, but it's good enough for us to fly at this low altitude. And we're going to start to descend for a good landing soon, but we're going to first check the airport on the left. If you're having trouble, then you can always just turn on the map from that menu there, as we saw. We don't really need that. We have visual reference today because the weather isn't as bad, and we're not going to fly too high for it to be a problem. And as you can see, we have the runway on our left. That's runway 35 from this side, and the opposite side is runway 17, which is what we're going to use to land the aircraft. And we're going to start to descend really soon once we pass the runway and go on the opposite side. This is a beautiful city, and it's a pretty short runway, but it's good enough for planes like these to have a good training. There is a real-life training center to learn how to fly planes. They have a flight school in this airport, which is what most pilots use when they first learn. Alright, we're going to start to gradually descend the plane. We're going to adjust the throttle and put the nose down a slight bit, because we don't really need to go too quick. We have to check the speed gauge so that the airspeed is not too high for us to land, because that would be difficult for us to land. We have to check the vertical speed down there under the altitude gauge, and we also have to check the altitude, of course, so that we are actually descending and not staying in the same place, which is what's happening right now. I'm actually leveling off a bit. I'm going to slowly start to descend in a bit, and then make a 180-degree turn, and the runway should be on our left. It's just behind us now. The weather is pretty fine. It's cloudy, but it's still good enough. The clouds are scattered towards the sky. There's our airport, 2.28 nautical miles behind us, which we will pass soon enough. We will start to descend for a landing in a bit. Now we're going to have to slow down, and once you start slowing down, you can see that the nose of the aircraft slowly will start to drop down. You have to trim the aircraft again in order for it to stay level for now and start to descend in the rate that you want it to descend. We don't want it to descend too quickly so that we don't land before the runway, and we don't want to land late so that the plane overshots the runway. So we have to be careful about that. We're starting to descend now, slowly. I'm going to make a slow turn to the left towards the runway. And because it's a VFR flight, which means visual flight rules, we actually have to see what we're doing instead of just taking instructions from the ATC and using our instruments, just like we are supposed to in real life. The ATC usually gives you information about vectors in the direction you have to go to in order to land on the runway. You can also land using the ILS frequencies, which we don't really have in this airport here. You only can land in using visual references, which is what we're doing. And we're slowly moving towards the runway. Now we're pretty close to the runway and our speed is pretty good. I'm going to try to put the flaps down. Now normally what we do is we put down flaps incrementally, like first of all we put it down 15 degrees and we start to put down the whole flap. What I'm gonna do now is put the whole flap down together. I'm going to slow down the plane a bit more so that we have it in the speed which we are required to put down flaps. I'm gonna put down the whole flap all together. It's going to be a bit risky there, but I think we can handle it. I'm gonna put the power up a bit because as you can see the power went all the way down there. Speed went down really fast because we put all the flaps down. We don't want to do that because then the plane might stall. So I'm gonna put the power up a bit, push the throttle in a bit, and now we are ready to land. Now all we have to do is line the plane up for the runway, keep the plane at a 60 knots speed, which is the optimal speed for landing. And as you can see, we have to check the altitude count as well. Check it constantly. And then we have to line up with the runway, and get ready for a smooth landing. Things that you have to check while you're landing are the airspeed indicators. You have to keep it at around 60 knots and the altitude, obviously. As you can see, it's slowly descending. And the next thing you have to do is you have to check for the PAPI lights. Now, what are the PAPI lights? Well, they are next to the runway. There are 2 or sometimes 4. There are 4 lights, and you have to keep 2 of them in white, and the other 2 have to be red, and that's basically a safe landing height. We're going to check on the PAPI lights in a bit once we line up to the runway. I'm keeping the speed at 60, and in order to do that I have to slow down the plane a bit. It's a bit quick. Now we have to line up to the runway a bit before we reach near the runway so that we have a safe landing. That's what I'm gonna do. As you can see there, we can see the lights already, and both of them are white. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna descend a bit quicker. I'm going to pull on the power a bit so that we can descend a bit quicker so that 2 of the lights are red. We're still at a safe landing distance, so it's fine. They're still white. Going to go a bit slower. There, it's going to turn red soon, I hope. And it has, as you can see, 2 of the lights are red, 2 are white. This is the optimal landing configuration, and our speed is at 60. Now we slowly have to descend and then glide the plane onto the runway. And once we're at that phase, we can cut the power to idle, and as you can see now, just cut the power to idle, pull the nose a bit, and it's gonna slowly drop down like that, and then you have a butter landing. We're a bit off the center line. It's fine because it's a small plane. Once you have a bigger plane, and you can, because as you saw, we were a bit off when we started to land. What we can do now is make another landing, and this time from the opposite side, because we have to park the plane near runway 17 from where we started, so we can actually make another takeoff. Flaps are going to be set to 15, and we are ready to take off again. Next time we can land a bit near the center line. That's basically it. That's how you fly the Cessna 152. We're going to try to do that again in a bit from this side, from runway 35. We're going to land it from this side now. And because we don't have a lot of time for the video, I'm going to make a shorter turn this time and not go too far. Just going to go near the river over there, which is, as you know, Padma River. We're going to make a full turn, 180-degree turn, after we reach near the river soon enough. And once we do that, then we can start to configure for a landing again. And this time, hopefully, we're going to land it a bit near the center line. Now, we're not that high this time, so that the landing would be a bit easier. We don't have to worry about the height like we did before, hopefully. I'm going to keep the plane level for now and start to move it to the right. The airport is still quite close, so I'm going to go a bit further than this and then make a 180-degree turn and go back towards the airport. You have to keep on checking for speed, which is near 80 knots, which is good enough, as long as it's inside the green area of the airspeed indicator. If it goes above the green area and goes to yellow, then you have a problem. You have overspeed, which might cause damage to the equipment of the aircraft, so you have to keep it in the green. This plane looks really good in the simulator. The simulator itself is really good, and my computer can't really handle the simulator as good, but it still works quite well compared to a lot of the other things that I play. I think now would be a good time to make a full left turn towards the airport. Bangladesh is all about greenery. As you can see, the whole area is mostly vegetation, land, and most of it is green. There are a lot of people, but then because the land is so vast, it's still good enough. And rivers, obviously, this river goes towards India from here. Now we're making the turn. We're making the turn over the city. We're going to land on this side this time on the runway runway 35. Yes, I think we're a bit low, but then that's still fine. You can adjust the height once we reach near the runway. The trick is to if you see the PAPI lights and both are white, you can start to descend a bit faster, and if you see both of them being red, you can keep the plane level a bit until one of them is white, and then you can two of them are white, then you can start to descend again. That usually works. This is the city, Rajshahi city, and oops, all right. So now we are ready to land again. I'm going to put the flaps down like before. The whole flaps down. We have to check for our airspeed. As you can see, the airspeed is dropping really fast. We have to keep our airspeed to at least 60 for us to land safely. And I'm going to try to line up to the runway a bit quicker this time so that the plane lands near the center line of the runway. I'm going to move a bit to the left like that. The airspeed is pretty well and good, and the altitude is a bit low. I think the PAPI lights are going to be fully red. Yes, they are. I'm going to have to go a bit further and then start to descend again. Yeah, we're a bit too low for this approach. You have to start to learn how to adjust to the descend and approach rate. I obviously am not a professional pilot, not yet at least. I have done a few classes and a few courses, but then I'm not fully licensed in. So whatever you learned is what I've learned from videos and from other pilots. Now the PAPI lights are, both of them are red. I'm going to keep the plane level a bit more so that two of them are white, which is going to be white soon. There you go, two of them are white. Now I can slowly start to descend to the runway. I'm going to try to land near the center line for this approach. The speed is okay, I guess. It's a bit less than 60. I have to try to keep it near 60, it's fine. Like that, and now we can start to slowly descend towards the runway. We are nearing the runway a bit, and I'm going to try to land it near the center line like I said, and we are ready to land in runway 35. So we're going to flare and cut off the power of the engine and slowly, there you go, now we've landed near the center line, a bit more at least, surely. There you go. That's how you land the Cessna 152, which is a pretty easy task, to be honest. Not that difficult as a lot of other planes, of course, because this is a training plane. You basically have to learn to run this plane as a novice pilot, and you slowly graduate from that. I'm going to go towards the end of the runway near the towers and near the airport, and then stop the plane there and show you how to turn it off. By the way, I'm using a Logitech Extreme 3D Pro as a side stick for my flying videos. If you guys were interested, I've seen a comment from you guys before in one of my videos that which equipment am I using. So that's what I'm using right now, a Logitech Extreme 3D Pro. And it works pretty well. It's a really cheap stick, but works really well for flying in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'm going to stop right there a bit more, and we are ready. I'm braking the plane. There you go. We are stopped. Now we have to pull the parking brake so that the plane keeps stopped. There you go. It's done, and now we have to start to slowly turn off the engine. First of all, the mixture. The mixture needs to be off. The fuel mixture should be cut off. First I'm going to turn off the yoke visibility so that we can see what we're doing. Turn off the lights, the pitot heat, sorry. Turn off the navigation light, the strobe lights, the beacon lights, and the landing lights. And now we cut off the mixture all the way. We pull it so that we don't have the mixture of the fuel anymore. Alright, I think everything else is set. There we go. The mixture should be off. There we go. Cut. The mixture is cut. Now we can turn off the switch, the keys. There you go. Keys are off. There it is. The carburetor heat, we can keep it there. That's the way it was. We can turn off the fuel valve. And now we turn off the battery power to the aircraft, both of the switches, and we are good. Everything else is set. The battery should be off, and we are done. There it is. We have to turn off both battery switches, but because the simulator doesn't allow me. Alright, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys have learned something today, and I'll see you in the next one. Please subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of these.